Another episodes of Jazz Cats on this Wednesday night. And I'm excited today. This is a personal treat. I've been on the road lately, everybody. I had Dwayne Parham in here last week. And tonight, I have a very special guest that's been a great influence on me in a short amount of time. And I'm thankful for it and count it as an honor and a blessing. But I appreciate you all too. So thank you for tuning in. And I hope you're going to be excited about this show, as excited as I am. Tonight, it's like jazz history with a jazz historian. It's local history in Detroit that she's been a part of. It's her and her husband. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to Miss Carolyn Wanzo.
Well, hello.
Yeah. So, Miss Wanzo,
Yes.
pleased to meet you. Thank you for being my guest. And I'm saying pleased to meet you tonight. But it was my pleasure a few months back. I guess it was the end of last year during the Jazz Festival, Detroit Jazz Festival to be exact, that we became acquainted. And you were trying to get me acclimated in the proper jazz circles. And so if you all don't know, I said proper jazz circles because if you are a true jazz connoisseur or a person that wants to live a true jazz lifestyle, then you have to go about that in the proper way. You got to have the proper conduct, the right mindset, the right fashion, your associations, but most of all, you got to know your music, and you can't be listening to like Luther Vandross and stuff like that, which is cool, but it's not jazz. It's smooth sounds, but it's not jazz. So, and it's a little more technicalities, but I'm just being fun to say it's like anything else. If you're really true with it, then you live it, and you don't just do it on the weekends or on holidays. You really roll like that. So, and so I learned without anybody telling me, pulling my coat, just by catching hints and the questions people ask me, the likes of Miss Wanzo, then you realize you had to step your game up a little bit. So she's real and true. So she's gonna tell you more about that, so you will be impressed as I am. So Miss Wanzo, thank you, and tell us a little bit about yourself, just your executive summary of you and Mr. Wanzo.
Well, I'm a native Detroiter all my life and a proud Cass Tech graduate, 1963. But I grew up in a Baptist family, and so music was a very important part of our living in Detroit. We were in church every Sunday. We had to join the choir. And we had to do all the things that typically a nice Christian family would do. I am the fifth of eight children. So, being a musical family, my father tried to play guitar,
Okay.
and he wasn't that good.
Okay.
But at least he was learning and trying to expose
He was
us
musical.
more, no doubt.
Okay.
And no doubt, it was in his DNA.
Mhm.
Couldn't sing either. But my mother, and of course my grandmother who lived with us, very, my grandmother very spiritual.
Okay.
And of course my mother just went along with all of that because she was as well trying to make sure six girls, two boys, had structure in their lives. And so all of us being musical as well, we sang in the choir, so we had our little Pure Voice Sisters, a singing group that
Okay.
sang, of course, and so we became very popular. And so music was always a part of my life. And so, and of course, a baby boomer, so, I'm a Motown product.
Okay.
And, nothing like Motown music. Of course, Dinah Ross was at Cass Tech when I was there.
Okay.
She was 2 years in front of me, but along with my sister Barbara as well, Barbara Pure Voice Selden.
Okay.
But of course, they had the Supremes at that time, so everybody was excited at Cass Tech about having this wonderful girls group. And of course, we all tried to emulate them. You know, we all wanted to do the thing as well and be as popular. But obviously, we didn't make that mark. We didn't know Berry Gordy and didn't have
Okay.
any connections. We were Southwest Detroiters. So we had no connections really with any of the folks who were really, really out there doing all the wonderful music stuff. We were just a little quiet community, a very diverse community. My father and mother were very structured, so we all were very seriously in school all the time, encouraging us to do better and always to do more. So I grew up doing music, and of course, as I said, being in church, my minister was very open to life in terms of enjoying music. As a matter of fact, their son at 5 could play on drums Cozy Cole's, what's the name of it?
I don't know because
Yeah,
I
it'll
don't
come
know who
back to
Cozy
me,
Cole is.
77.
Okay, you had Cozy Cole, put a pin in it.
But he was a drummer.
Okay.
And that selection that he did, this 5-year-old could just do it all. Well, Randy ended up being the principal timpanist, the New Jersey Symphony. He was just that talented. Of course, went on to Cass Tech, and they had a little fellas group, the Six Lads.
Okay.
And so they had a little jazzy group. And of course, this is very different for a minister and his wife. You know,
Okay.
it just was kind of in the 60s and stuff, it was kind of like out of the norm, kind of to be in a jazz club or something like that. But Mrs. Hicks was very jazzy. She knew everybody.
Now, who is Mrs. Hicks?
Mrs. Hicks was my minister's wife.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, Mrs. Hicks. And she knew everybody in jazz. And so she obviously was the person who not only encouraged me to sing with the Six Lads, so I was the Six Lads plus one.
Okay.
And so I had a couple opportunities to perform with them, you know. But my mother certainly wasn't going to have the daughters doing that kind of stuff. You know, very protective, very structured, kind of in a situation in our family. So I didn't get to do much of that, but we continued to sing in the
So
choir.
you got your feet wet with
Very
the
much
Six
so.
Lads and Miss Hicks educating you about
Everything.
jazz.
Everything. Everything.
Okay.
So, as a matter of fact, she became my Cupid. She's the one that introduced me to Melvin.
Who
Much
became your
later.
husband?
Yes.
Later.
Yes.
Okay.
My husband.
So
But anyway, so we grew up musically,
okay.
and so it was just a very natural thing when Mrs. Hicks, Billy, had moved into an apartment downtown, and of course I moved into that same apartment at some point, and about 3 weeks after I was there, she said, I want to go see the Count Basie Orchestra. They're going to be performing in West Park, Ann Arbor. And so I knew that meant that I had to drive. I had to drive her.
Okay.
And of course, we were going to be meeting Jimmy Wilkins and Cindy Wilkins and in the park as well, and we were going to enjoy the Count Basie Orchestra. So I drove, and of course, when the bus pulled up and Melvin got off the bus, she introduced me to Melvin. And whenever the band took a break, Melvin would come and sit next to us.
Okay.
So we talked, and of course, after the park gig, they had another gig at the Senator's house in Ann Arbor. So they invited Jimmy Wilkins, Cynthia, and us to go to this other gig with them. Well, when they took a break, Melvin would come over and sit and talk with us. And so he asked me for my phone number, and I wasn't quite ready in my structured life because I had already been married once and was single for like a long time. And so at that time I was doing college and doing all the things, getting my professional life together. And so I really wasn't so interested in changing my life. So I was kind of hesitant about giving him my number.
Okay.
And because, at that time, there was some concerns about jazz musicians and, that life. But, of course, Melvin was never any of that. He was simply a wonderful human being.
Okay.
And so, long story short, I didn't give him my phone number, but I asked for his.
Okay.
Because they were staying at the hotel downtown. He said they had to go to Toledo for a gig the next day, and if I wasn't doing anything when they got off the gig, maybe he could
Call on you.
talk to me.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'll call you. So he gave me his number. I called him, and it was like 11 o'clock, and we used to have this wonderful piano bar over at the Rhinoceros. It was on Franklin
Okay.
downtown, and it was wonderful. My cousin was playing, Stanley Johnson was playing the piano, so I asked Melvin if he wanted to go hear some music, and of course he wanted to go hear some music. And so I picked him up. We went to the Rhinoceros, saw the last show, and so then I decided to invite him to my house, and I think we must have talked about 3 or 4 hours. And so then I decided, well, he's a nicer man than I could have imagined. So I did give him my phone number.
Okay.
And the most wonderful thing was whenever he came through Detroit, the band, he always brought me something very special.
Okay.
Very special. It was a silk scarf from Japan, or it was always something very, very, very unique. So we became closer and closer. He would call, and 40 weeks a year on the road. He was a traveling musician, being Count Basie's lead trombonist.
Okay.
And they were international.
Big time. That's big time.
Everywhere. Of
Yeah.
course, he had also played with the Woody Herman Swinging Herd a couple years.
Big time.
And he was with Glenn Miller, as a matter of fact, under Ray McKinley.
So he was true and true.
True.
Jazz
true.
to the bone.
40 years, big band, 6 Grammys, command performances for the Queen,
Yeah.
performing for the King of Bangkok, and on and on and on.
And see, that's why, to interrupt the story for a minute, I just want to touch on some key things.
Yeah.
And myself, I can appreciate it. Becoming a man of age, and you talked about the checkered reputation and all this. I have a bad boy reputation, and sometimes I get to feel like, oh man. So when somebody appreciates me for me and says, you're not so bad, that makes me even a better guy. So I can appreciate the courtship story and the romantic part of it. But then, as an aspiring jazz man, and when I told the opening about if you really a jazz guy, it's just like bluesmen. Blues guys have certain traits, and certain reputation goes with that. And so it's a jazz guy, same as a rock and roll. Everybody has their niche. So I appreciate jazz life for all the reasons you just said. The finesse of it, the class of it, the sophistication of it, just the style and the uniqueness of it. Like all musicians, you have to be around musicians to know what terms like gig mean and stuff like that. So I just, appreciate the whole story. And then to you to have somebody close to you like that played for royalty, that traveled the world, that's lights, cameras, action all the time. No big deal of these legends I'm around every day. I just want to come and hang out with you. I guess that's how he made you feel. I want to come hang out with you.
Well, I can only tell you that when he asked me to marry him, and I finally said yes, he said, when? And I said, okay, before the year's over, how's that? And so he said, okay, well, come September, he got the winter itinerary, and on the 11th of December, they were going to be performing for Joe Williams' 70th birthday in Las Vegas.
Okay.
So he showed me the itinerary, and he said, well, we're going to be in Vegas for Joe Williams' birthday on the 12th is his birthday, but we're going to perform on Saturday, the 11th, for his party.
Hmm.
And how about that date?
Okay, let me pay some bills. Hold the story right there. So, everybody, I hope you're enjoying this story as much as I am. Listen about a true jazz courtship and an evolution of the mind with the jazz education. So, thank you for watching Jazz Cats. You can tune in every Wednesday night at 8 to watch this live stream. We stream live on Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and uh, YouTube, and all top social media outlets. And we appreciate you. And listen, for those who haven't made it to our WJZZ Legacy Jazz Series at the Hotel St. Regis, you're in luck. We got tickets on sale right now through Eventbrite. For saxophonist Charles Prophet. If you don't know about Charles Prophet, he's a Detroit native, and you go on YouTube and check him out. And if you say you like jazz music, you're going to love this show. You're going to love the St. Regis, and you're going to love the whole evening. It's good for the women. It's a cheap date, guys, so don't sweat it. Dress up, get your lady, surprise her, take her to the jazz concert, and you won't be sorry. I'm there on site. You can come to me. I'll take care of you, whatever you need. Tickets on sale on Eventbrite right now. Only $15. If you want a private table, then contact me, inbox me, get to me somehow, and I'll take care of you with a private table. But hurry up because we only got a few left. So, thank you, and we're going back to the story now. So, we got to Vegas, and we're at the point that you and Melvin, Mr. Wanzo, are about to tie the knot and jump the broom. All right?
And
So,
that's correct. We
okay.
jumped the broom.
Okay, so I want to hold the story right there for a minute and go back because we know you are a proud technician. So everybody from around the world, we have a famous school, Cass Tech High School in Detroit. And if you knew how many people of influence and stature came out of that school, the rest of the Detroit schools are cool, but I guess I didn't go to Cass, but I got a bunch of family who did. That's what a technician is, somebody who went to Cass Tech. And they all are proud to be technicians. I just went to regular old Central, the oldest high school in Detroit, but nonetheless, she's a technician. So tell us about your university days. The reason I ask is it's a segue. I know you and Mr. Wanzo did a lot for jazz in general, but especially if I'm not, Wayne State in particular, right?
That's correct.
So tell us about your university days and the tie-in with you and him being philanthropists and donors and just doing everything for Wayne State and jazz community.
Well, I'm just really proud to say that one of the things I loved about Melvin was his giving spirit. Being a Muslim, zakat giving is such a huge pillar in the religion. And so he embodied what that meant to his soul. His position was, you could play 20, 30 years and die, and nobody would ever know who you were. So, and at that time, he had retired from the Basie Orchestra, and Chris Collins, who was director of jazz studies at Wayne at that time, whispered close enough to him, said loudly enough rather, I really need a trombone player to come to Wayne State and play in our jazz lab band. And of course, musicians really only want to play. Mm-hmm. So that was right up Mel's alley. He turned around and Chris and he hooked up, and Melvin was at Wayne State every Tuesday and Thursday sitting in the jazz section mentoring all those kids. They would come to the house. We would go everywhere with that band and wherever they were playing. So we became really band parents.
Okay.
And Melvin lived 10 more years after that. So we were there all of that time. What we did was he decided, and of course I did too, that we wanted to do endowments. And so in 2003, we started doing fundraisers. We had 5 major fundraisers. Count Basie's orchestra played for us a couple times. Houston Person Quartet played for us. Johnny O'Neill Jazz Lab Band played for us at Wayne State. The Clayton Brothers Quintet, we just had 5 huge fundraisers. And we endowed the Mel Wanzel Trombone Scholarship. That was our first. And that scholarship today is the highest award in the music department. It's $10,000.
Okay.
Yes, this year it's 10,000. We set it up for 5, so we could actually award 2 this year if we wanted, or to just simply award the 1. Well, after we did that, it was such a wonderful feeling. And of course, it was just right in line with everything Melvin was about. Every year, somebody was Melvin playing that trombone. And Wayne State created a brass-looking portrait of Melvin, his band, picture with his trombone, and put it in the Shaver Music Hall band room where they practice. So as the students were sitting practicing, they would see Melvin on the wall after he died, obviously. And every year they would put something, a brass tag, on that wall of the recipient of his award.
Okay.
So now we've got about 20 of those up there. But after Mel died, and of course we were just extremely satisfied with everything, I got kind of jealous, and I said, I really want to do an endowment for myself in School of Social Work.
Okay.
And so we did that one in the School of Social Work, and that endowment, 2005, it pays about $3,000 for the
And what's the name of that one?
It's the Carolyn Purefoy Patrick Wanzo
Okay.
Endowed Scholarship in Social Work.
Okay, and what are the requirements for a student to be eligible for either one?
Well, the donor determines what the requirements are, because it is a donor agreement that you will sign with Wayne State that dictates to them what your wishes are relative to the award. And so generally, you want a higher grade point average, you want at least a 3-point, you would like some financial need if that's what is required, but more than that, you want the individual to be a very serious student and to really honor the award and use the money for the betterment of themselves.
Okay.
So the donor decides what the standards are for the award, and you have to put at least $25,000 up in order to endow.
Okay.
That is your ceiling, entry level rather, for an endowment at Wayne State University. And with a 4% return on the principal, you get to award probably about $1,000 scholarship. So if we're awarding $10,000, we got a lot of money endowed in Melvin's endowment. So after I did mine, then in 2014, actually, Cass Tech came to me and said that they wanted to go on a jazz cruise or do something jazzy to raise some money for Cass Tech. And so somebody suggested, well, then you need to talk to Carolyn Wanzo. And so my former husband, by the way, Lawrence C. Patrick, attorney Lawrence C. Patrick.
I knew Mr. Patrick.
Did
He was my elk brother.
Oh boy. Small world. Well, we were only married about 4 years. He was my high school sweetheart.
Okay.
And another sweetie guy, but we just simply were not ready for marriage. And so we were only married about 4 years, but we remained very good friends until his death. And so Larry called me and said, can you meet with us? He, at the time, of course, was chair of the Cass Tech Alumni Association. He was that forever.
Yeah.
So he said what they wanted to do, and of course Larry knew that I had done all these fundraisers. And so he just said, well, and she goes on the jazz cruise every year. So he thought that I would be a good person to talk to. Well, they wanted to see if I could bring Diana Ross in for a concert. And so my position was, we really need to do Detroit before Motown.
Mm-hmm.
We really need to get into really what jazz is, because of what happened at Cass Tech. All the masters that we enjoy today, all those voices that they created for us are still with us. They just allow the other musicians to do little improvisations on it. But so many of those masters came out of Cass
Drop a
Tech.
few names.
Oh my God! How about Curtis Fuller, Ron Carter, Paul Chambers, just on and Della Reese on. That's a surprise that Della Reese came out of Cass
Yeah.
Tech. Alice Coltrane.
She was Alice McLeod then,
yes,
right?
Donald Byrd. Just on and on.
Yeah.
So I convinced them to allow me to try to bring in Ron Carter.
Okay.
And of course, I had to find Ron Carter. Ron Carter's in New York. I had the opportunity to meet him. Melvin introduced me to him. Had introduced me to him some time ago. So I scattered around trying to find him. And I finally called Chris Collins. And I said, Chris, I'm trying to get a hold of Ron Carter. He said, well, I'm headed to New York tomorrow to meet with him. I said, great. Tell him that we want him to do something for Cass Tech. Of course, you know that Ron Carter is the most recorded bassist, Guinness World
ever.
Record holder. And so Cass Tech Alumni Association made an agreement with Chris and the Detroit Jazz Festival. Chris was going to meet him to bring him to the festival to be our artist in residence. And so we made a little deal with Chris that Cass Tech would pay $5,000 of the $14,000 Ron Carter was charging to come in, and he would then do a meet and greet for us for Cass Tech. And so then the Marriott gave us the ballroom downtown for the festival, and we had 27 tables of 10, each one with a stanchion on it that had a jazz master. It was phenomenal. It was a phenomenal day. We made a lot of money, and Larry Patrick got up and announced that the board had unanimously decided to award a scholarship in my name.
Okay.
So now, that just put me on Front Street, right? And so I had to get up and thank the board, but then I had to say to all the people, so you see what they just did. So when I come and ask you guys for some money or to help, don't run. They gave me this to do. So when you see me coming, just don't run the other way.
Yeah.
Well, we did such a wonderful job for that event that this was the first time the Cass Tech Alumni Association had to even file a real income tax. They made just that much money at that event.
Okay.
We had a program book. It was a wonderful program book, and it was just wonderful event. And so they named that for me. And I wanted to give it to Ron Carter because I knew that Ron Carter's name on it would just blow it up.
Right.
Well, Ron wasn't quite ready. I think he was already working on something that he wanted to do. So he didn't take the offer for the scholarship. Of course, he was going to have to give a little money for, we were going to give some, but he was going to have to give some.
Okay.
But
everybody got to have some skin in the game.
got to own it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they put that one on me. So what I did, instead of it just being on me, I named it Purifoy, my maiden name, Wjzz. And also my sister Barbara is a Purifoy. She gave part of the money as well. So it was Purifoy, Wjzz, CTAA.
Okay.
So I put CTAA on that one as well. And that endowment probably pays about $1,800.
Okay.
So after that, I was very happy for a while until COVID.
Okay, now let's take a pause. We're gonna come
Okay.
back. Got to do the station IDs and stuff again. So everybody, again, we have Mrs. Carolyn Purifoy, Wanzo, philanthropist, jazz lady, sophisticated lady, and somebody you ought to know in Detroit and in jazz circles internationally. That's I'm telling you, she's too humble and modest to say it. But I'm saying it. But thank you for watching. You're watching Jazz Cats with your host Roger Pimzabene, and I thank you so much for watching and tuning in every week. Like, follow, share, subscribe. You can, if you miss it or you got to go somewhere, you can always watch us on demand. So you get the news, you can get the updates, everything, and get the tickets. I got to hustle. So we got Charles Prophet, saxophonist, Detroit native. We'll be at the WJZZ Legacy Jazz Series at the historic St. Regis Hotel on West Grand Boulevard in Detroit. Easy to find, luxurious place. The ladies love it. May the 11th from 6 o'clock until 9. Get your tickets on Eventbrite. They're only $15. And this may be the last time it's a $15 ticket. I don't know, but this is going to be a great show for $15. It's a cheap date, guys. I keep telling you that. So step your game up and get some tickets. Hope to see you there. Come up to me, shake my hand, make a friend, take some pictures. But anyway, tell all your friends to watch Jazz Cats on WJZZ Cool TV. The coolest station in the world, the sister station to WJZZ Radio, the oldest jazz station in the world. And I get the game from people like Miss Wanso. So that's why WJZZ is the best. So thank you for tuning in. And we're going to close out this show in this last segment. So learn more about jazz and Miss Wanso. So, COVID stopped you and you had to pause and reset like the rest of the world. But before we get into that, I want to make sure we honor Mr. Wanzo to to know where he came from. What was his hometown and where did he do his thing before you and he met?
Well, he was born in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, Midwest.
Yes, and was actually raised by his grandmother as well. But he always, the grandmother exposed him to everything that was going on at the time. And that was, she was a part of the Marcus Garvey Society,
Okay,
so she was progressive.
okay,
She also would take him to every Duke Ellington concert. That when Duke Ellington came, that was what she wanted for him. So she exposed him to music as well. Melvin played trumpet at first, and he made his first $5 at age 8 at a military funeral playing,
trumpet.
yes,
Okay,
for the funeral, yes.
okay,
And so he became the ultimate in terms of a musician. He was exposed to all the musicians around him. A lot of the Duke Ellington sidemen were in Ohio as well. He was around the corner from a couple of them. And so that was a part of their society. They had a different kind of attitude around exposure. He grew up in a very diverse community at that time. And of course, he, his family, they were very fair-skinned. So it was, they didn't care about color. It wasn't anything that was negative. It was all about community. I had an opportunity to go to his first time he went back to Warren, Ohio for a class reunion
okay.
after we were married, and the whole room just screamed. The entire room just screamed. They were so happy to see him. Of course, they knew who he was. And of course, they just played Basie all night for us and had us dancing. So, but he grew up and was expected to do good things. And he was exposed to music because that was something wonderful to do of the day. Those musicians had a style.
Yeah.
They were cleaner than the Board of Health. Uh, there's no doubt they loved dressing, and being on stage and performing. And so he became very popular around Warren. And matter of fact, he was got a job. He was a studio musician for a Cleveland radio station, TV station, excuse me, as well.
Yeah.
And he worked in the music stores. So this was a very natural occurrence for him. And in the 50s, he was out there with Ray Charles and all of those. Choker Campbell. He played with Big Joe Turner.
Okay.
That Tom Jones tour that came over here from England, Gladys Knight was the opening act for Tom Jones.
Yeah.
He was in that band, and he was just everywhere.
Well, since the world changed literally through COVID, we came out the other end a different world.
Yeah.
And this is a jazz show, so I want to restrict it now because you're an expert in jazz and jazz culture.
Not.
Okay, well,
I just love it though.
okay, well, you're. I'm gonna say this. I would say qualified to have an opinion. Because a lot of people have opinions that's not worth two dead flies. It's, and they don't have a clue what they're talking about. But in this matter, I would dare to say you do. So what I want to ask is, before we run out of time, because I value your opinion, experiencing and knowing and enjoying all what you knew in the past, living in that jazz life with an actual working, celebrated musician, a connected musician. You're on the front line of the culture, and we get to where we are now. You're also a part of the happenings, like you're part of the Detroit Jazz Festival. Now, I got to make sure I get this right. It's the largest and the oldest free jazz festival in the world, right?
That is correct.
And okay, and you are on the board of.
No,
okay.
I'm a guardian.
Okay, explain the
Well,
difference real quick, because I didn't know the difference.
Well, if you're a board member, obviously you're setting policy and doing things like that. I don't
Okay.
believe in my phone.
Okay,
And
that's okay. It's live TV. We can keep going.
if you're a board member, you're doing policy. If you're a guardian, you're simply promoting jazz. And that's what I am doing all the time for the Detroit Jazz Festival Foundation. I'm
Okay.
supporting and promoting jazz. And so they give me that title and they give me a little.
Okay, so you're connected in an intimate way.
Yes.
My point, your personal opinion. Couple of things I ask everybody that comes through here. Overall state of affairs of jazz culture. As a promoter, station owner, everything, I have some challenges. Jazz and blues, which are both national treasures to our country, both founded, evolved, guarded by African Americans, black people. Where do you think jazz is now compared to all the past days? Are we going in a good, positive direction that you feel hopeful about? Or do we really need to get on the ball and do some things collectively to preserve and advance this?
Well, I do believe that today I'm wearing my favorite Emmett Cohen trio.
Okay, Emmett Cohen Trio.
And let me tell you, in response to your question, this is a young man who has adopted all of the masters. He has been able to absorb all of the conversation, all of whatever it is they want to give him, and make it even bigger and better. If there's such a thing, bigger and better, there's improvisation, which allows you to put yourself in it and to make it what you want. There's no doubt that the jazz is in very good hands. as always. And it's a wonderful thing to see how those same voices that started all of this stuff in the 30s and whenever they started it, how it's the same, but it has evolved. Because the voice is a vocalization of the experiences that that individual brings out musically in a jazz format.
Mm-hmm.
So as things change, so does the jazz, but it still remains jazz because it's still doing the same. It is a representation of exactly what the experience is in a musical form. So, because I like going to jazz concerts, particularly with the old masters, and of course they're bringing these young folks up, and the young folks that I have seen, they're very excited to even be in the presence of these masters, and they are cherishing the music.
Okay. My second question. So I take that to say you feel hopeful and comfortable that jazz is headed in the right direction and all is well overall.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing the right things. Uh, Here's another question I ask for our travel experts. I always hear about all genres of music and art in general that it's more appreciated and cherished in Europe than it is here. Do you agree? And if so, why do you think that is?
America. Well, first off, the Europeans have always been much more free and accepting. It just appears that when you go to Paris and you go to the art museums and all of the wonderful places that you can go and absorb culture, those icons over there have simply been a part of what they feel about everything that is special. As you would know, the African American musicians could not perform in many of the jazz clubs,
Mm-hmm.
even though they had to come through the back door or some of that. So they were so well regarded in in Europe
Okay.
that it became an very acceptable place for them to live. And many of them would go there just to get out from under the kinds of things that were happening here
Okay.
to
All the
jazz
prejudices
musicians.
and things like that.
Correct.
So what is the prescription? What are some fundamental things people like myself, promoters, educators, that we can do here to try to get that same level of appreciation and endearment here? What do you have any recommendations?
Well, listening, I think, and understanding and enjoying the music is the first thing. And to be able to talk about the music and to share how it makes you feel
Mm-hmm.
uh, is a big, huge part of it. Supporting jazz clubs, you promoting jazz musicians. My God, that is you're bringing the music to the people, and believe me, the musicians bring the people.
Okay.
And so because they take you places, the musicians, where you typically would not go internally in your mind, and it relieves you of a whole lot of stress. And so it's a good thing not only for the musicians, but it's a good thing for the audiences as well.
Well,
It's a wonderful thing.
thank you for the compliment, and I appreciate the candid answers. We got about 5 minutes to go, so a couple of things I want to make sure we get in. One is your recommendation of an artist to watch, to keep our eye on. Somebody, I know you shared something with me, so you want to.
Well, I mean, first off, uh, Samaya Joy is just a wonderful vocalist, and she has such a range and she's such a beautiful spirit. She embodies all of the humbleness, all of the attributes that you would imagine someone who bears their soul in front of the world would
Okay.
have to feel. I mean, the fear. But she commands the audience in such a way because she is so very sincere about her own presentation. So not only, I don't know, is she 24? Is she?
So yeah,
Maybe.
yeah.
But I've been watching Emmett Cohen since he was 19, and that's probably about 15 years now for it. But another one to watch. He is just a sponge. He's everywhere, all over the world. He plays with all, he brings the masters out. As a matter of fact, he does live stream every Monday
Okay.
at Emmett's place in his living room in New York.
Okay.
And the musicians come to him every Monday. He's been doing this since COVID started.
I got to get it going like that over here.
Oh my God, yes.
And in our last few minutes,
yes.
tell us about what's coming up big for you. We know we got the Jazz Festival that's coming, but what do you have going on now?
Well, one of the things that I really enjoy is, as you will know, doing concerts. And so we've had small ones at the mosque, and we've had them at the St. Regis Hotel as well. But this year, I'm going to be working with a good friend, Dr. David and Lauren Mendelson, and we are going to bring the Emmett Cohen Trio and Houston Person.
I'm going to be at that one.
And they're going to do a home concert. She lives in Huntington Woods, they're off Woodward,
Okay.
and they like having these home concerts. Freddie Cole's played 4 or 5, 6 times. He signs her piano.
Okay.
Lanny White. Everybody plays in her living room, and so we're just happy, Castech Alumni Association, to work with her again, and to bring in Houston Person. And of course, the Emmett Cohen Trio. We're real happy.
Now, what's the
about
date
that.
for that?
It will be on Thursday, August the 31st. It is the day before the Jazz Festival starts.
Okay. Now, is that a private affair, invitation only?
No, it is a public affair, and you kind of have to kind of know somebody that,
Got it.
because it's going to be advertised obviously on Facebook, but our living room probably holds about 75 people.
Right. Okay.
And so the word will get out, and it's just us old jazz heads probably.
Okay.
That
Well,
will
I'm
be
sticking
there.
close to you.
Very good.
That's my inside connection. But how does one reach you?
Well, email
Okay.
cpwanzo at yahoo.com.
Okay. Okay.
cpwanzo at yahoo.com.
Yeah. And if you didn't catch that, rewind it a few times or contact me and I'll screen you out and then ask Miss Wanzo, can you say the passwords and all that good stuff? No, I'm just playing. But if I can help connect you with Miss Wanzo. And we got the Detroit Jazz Festival coming up. You want to give us a sneaky peek on somebody that we need to be there this year?
Yes, Johnny O'Neill's coming home.
Okay,
And
okay.
he's going to be on the main stage with Sullivan Forte, 2 pianists, going to be a piano duet.
Okay.
It's going to simply be wonderful. Louis Nash is also coming. He's a prolific jazz drummer all over the world. Teacher, has a jazz club named for him in Phoenix. So he's going to be performing on our festival this year. So it's going to be a wonderful festival. Regina Carter.
Okay, well
Castech.
you said enough right there. Those
Regina
3
Carter.
right there.
Castech.
That's worth showing up,
It's-
and it's free.
Yeah.
So you get up extra early so you can get down in the front row, or you know somebody. So I think you're gonna be getting a lot of new friends once they see this show. But I want to thank you for being my guest tonight. I look forward to, because you got a lifetime of stories to tell and a lot more inside information. But we're out of time. I want to thank you all for tuning in again. I can't put in words how much I appreciate you. And I really need your support. So like, follow us, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to be a guest, if you know a good musician, you want to play, you want to get booked, all that good stuff, get at me, give me a call, talk to me, come to the station, however you got to do it. We can make it happen together. I thank you. I appreciate you. And I'll see you next week. And like, follow, share, subscribe, and get those tickets. Detroit, get those tickets. WJZZ Legacy Jazz Series. Charles Prophet, saxophonist, will be there May 11th. Tickets $15 on Eventbrite right now. Everybody, good night. See you next week.